Raise a glass for Ron White's return to the island. From hilarious childhood stories to witty tales about life now, you'll laugh along to it all when he takes the stage at Treasure Island on Saturday, April 19th. Tickets are on sale now. You can get yours at TICasino.com.
Double 13-14 pass. Hour number 2 begins with really one of our favorite segments of the day. It allows me to have a little lunch. It's called 534.
Time now for 5 questions. Well, actually 3, but 5 sounds like more than 4. Question number 1.
It's now time to take an in-depth look at the welfare of the Wolves.
Before last night's game tipped off, the Wolves and center Rudy Gobert reached a 3-year, $110 million contract extension. Gobert entered the season with 2 more years left on his current contract, including a player option for $47 million in 2025-2026. Reaching this extension gives Gobert long-term security and the Wolves much more flexibility with the salary cap by foregoing that option for a considerably lower salary next season. Common, your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like, much like, seemed as though the big meow trade almost had to be made just because of financial reasons. This was something that free up some salary cap space, and players likes the extension, so I guess it all works out for the best. The one person that probably wouldn't be thrilled about it would be, wasn't it? Didn't we talk about this about a week ago or 2 weeks ago where, was it Shaq was just all over Gobert?
Yes.
Talk about how, just like he's stealing money and all that. I guess Shaq,
Is that when you call him like the worst player in the league or something?
Yeah, because Shaq just felt like, I think a little bit that Shaq probably never made the kind of money, because he made good money, but it wasn't the kind of money they're making now. And I don't know if it's envy or jealousy, if he really just doesn't feel like Gobert's not that, he's not as big a difference maker as maybe he should be, but he has won he's been 4-time defensive player of the year. So, I don't know what to think about it other than these. I don't always understand. I don't think a lot of us do the salary cap machinations. You got to move money around. You do extensions. Every league does it. The NFL is famous for it. So, and Gobert's been a quality player. So why not?
You were talking about polarizing athletes locally.
Yeah.
Earlier in the program. I don't think Rudy Gobert is that polarizing locally, but nationally.
Yes.
I mean, the Draymond Green stuff, the Shaquille O'Neal stuff, people calling him out, saying he shouldn't be Defensive Player of the Year, or he shouldn't be making that much money. I mean, he might be as polarizing as any NBA player out there.
I would tend to agree. That's a good point. I think you're, and that's why you're 10 to be.
Question number 2.
Go Vikings, let's win this game. You'll hear us yell for more.
It's now time to take an in-depth look at the state of the Skull.
We're a little under 2 weeks away from the NFL trade deadline. ESPN did a column today on players to watch, team needs, rumors for every team. And for the Vikings, on which player they should target, they suggest Broncos defensive tackle DJ Jones. They write, Jones has been a handy player for a quality Broncos defense, so I'm not sure how gettable he is right now, but he is a veteran in the last year of his deal, so it's worth making the call. Vikings fans are hoping for Jeffrey Simmons or Dexter Lawrence II, but Jones would give them the stout and reliable nose tackle play they need at a fraction of the cost. Common, do you think the Vikings will be active before the trade deadline, and is defensive tackle the position they should target?
It's you can't have enough defensive tackles. I don't know. I'll leave that to other people to decide. I do know that somebody sent me a text message yesterday, and Twitter is always what am I trying to say? It's filled with rumor and innuendo,
yes.
right? I mean, it's
fake news.
And
clickbait.
I've seen several that the rumor is the Vikings are going to pull off some kind of a deal. They're actively making inquiries for availability of players, and of course, we talked about it yesterday. It was, and I get it. A couple of people texted me and said, look, Florio, he does that kind of stuff all the time. He throws stuff out there that a lot of time it has no rationale behind it or anything, not necessarily it's not truthful, but it's just throwing stuff out and hoping something sticks and hits the wall. But, there was these that they might go after Matt Stafford, so I don't know if the Vikings feel they need to beef up any part of the line. The defensive backs is, I know we have all sorts of them. We were just thrilled with the guys we got. I was reading one of those in-depth kind of pieces. It could have been Athletic or something. And there were some question marks about some of the secondary and some of the schemes we use defensively are to kind of cover up on some weaknesses in the secondary. So maybe that would be the place to go if the people who are writing this, if they're correct, maybe that's the place to go. I don't know. Your thoughts?
I mean, offensively, I don't really know if they're, other than maybe right guard, I don't know if there's a place that you need upgrade, right? Your skill position players, running back, wide receiver, assuming Hopkins comes back 100%, like you're all good there. Despite the Stafford rumors, I'm not convinced they're just going to move on to Sam Darnold after 6 games when he's led you to a 5-1 start. And your offensive line, tackles are pretty good. The left guard's having a good season. So maybe center, right guard, but I don't know if there's really a clear move on offense. Defense, I would say maybe interior define. The edge rushing's been pretty good. I think you got to be happy with Grenard and Van Ginkel have been very good additions. Their linebackers, when healthy, right? Cashman was out against Detroit, but linebackers, when healthy, have looked solid. Your safety play is good. So, I would go interior defensive line or your cornerbacks. I'm not believing the Matthew Stafford thing. I think people just throw stuff on the wall, hoping it's going to stick and trying to get attention for themselves, and I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form. How often does that happen where a quarterback who is a legit starter for a team just changes teams in the middle of the season?
Right. Let me ask you this.
Those are typically complicated stuff.
Do you think our place kicker is safe?
He's safe in the Hall of Fame is where he is.
Exactly
his bust is safe.
They're chiseling out his bust for the Hall of Fame as we speak.
Question number 3. And now it's time for the 7th inning stretch.
Former Dodgers pitcher Fernando Valenzuela died yesterday at the age of 63. Fernando won the NL Cy Young Award and Rookie of the Year in 1981, the first and only player to ever win both in his rookie season. Common, what do you remember about Fernando Valenzuela and Fernando Mania?
That it was mania. He was a phenom, particularly that rookie year. He had a nice career. I think, wasn't he known for when he'd wind up to pitch, he would stare straight, his eyes would roll up and he would look up at the sky or something. It was very odd. Hell of a play. I mean, other than that, I guess, my memory is failing me, but he was that rookie year in particular. Did you say he won both the
Cy Young and Rookie of the Year in his rookie season?
Yeah, he was spectacular. And
he's a 6-time All-Star.
He died
6 in a row.
He died at 63?
Yes.
Did it say?
Apparently he was doing some broadcasting work for the Dodgers on their Spanish call. And he took some time off for some health reasons within the last month or two. So clearly something went amiss.
Yeah, and they have not explained. They've not listed a cause of death yet? Well,
no.
Well, we'll keep you posted.
But I was surprised because as a kid, his rookie year was, I was a baby at the time. But even when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, like everyone you knew of Fernando Valenzuela as a kid. So I was surprised because even his numbers appear to be Hall of Fame worthy to me, that did not make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of the pitchers that get in, I feel like, I know, the second half of his career, the numbers went south a little bit. But
how long did he pitch? He pitched
for a long time, but his last, I was looking at his stats earlier today. His last 5-6 years were not good. I know he actually skipped a year. But, there was a 6-7 year stretch there where he was arguably the most dominant pitcher in all of baseball. So I was surprised that he was not in the Hall of Fame. So he pitched until he was 36 years old, and he first pitched when he was 19.
See, I didn't remember him even being around that long. So good for him.
He had stops with California, Baltimore, Philadelphia, San Diego, St. Louis on the back half of his career. But his run with the Dodgers, pretty darn good.
May he rest in peace. Fernando Valenzuela, dead at 63.
And that's it for today's edition of 5 Questions. Well, actually, 3 questions, but 5 sounds like more than 4.
Tennessee, I'm sure, is a key word. We have controversial Vikings news, other side of the break, and more to get to. I think we're doing Rock Talk today. I haven't heard from Oak. I don't know if he's coming in or not. I kind of forgot about it. It's a Wing It Wednesday, you know that. We fly by the seat of our pants. We'll take a short break, though, and come back with more. But right now, Tennessee has a keyword for us.
Yeah, the fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Just enter the keyword money at KFAN.com now for a shot at winning. The keyword is money. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN program? Make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Brian text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
The legendary Brian Oak will be joining us at 1:30. He heard me wondering aloud whether he would be joining me at 1:30 for our Wednesday afternoon edition, regularly scheduled Wednesday afternoon edition of Rock Talk. He says he indeed will be there. Teddy, we talked, I think it was even just yesterday, about, the power rankings. And, they change every week. There are 13, 14 different ones that I see. And Lions now are number 1 in one of them. Kansas City, which is what I want to talk about, because apparently they're making a trade as we speak.
Yeah, they did.
Kansas City is 6-0. They're the only undefeated team yet. They don't seem to be that offensively. They're not, and they've been ravaged by injuries. Right? Is Pacheco even playing?
Pacheco's hurt,
so he's out. And
their number 1 wide receiver, Rashee Rice, is out.
And Kelsey has been sort of kind of a non-factor, right? I mean, certainly hasn't been, or has it been better the last few weeks? I know
he had one good game a couple games ago, but yeah.
Because that was one of the sidebar stories starting the season, was that Kelsey was basically non-existent in the first 2, 3, 4 games for Kansas City. They've been finding a way to win games running the ball really more than passing it. Their defense apparently is still top notch, but Dateline, Kansas City, Missouri, the 2-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs are acquiring 3-time All-Pro wideout DeAndre Hopkins from Tennessee, replenishing a position group that has been ravaged by injuries. Chiefs are saying that a conditional 5th-round pick to the Titans, according to NFL Network. While Tennessee is taking on some of Hopkins' salary, that was an important point for the Chiefs, who have very little cap space. Chiefs coach Andy Reid declined to acknowledge the trade before practice, saying only that general manager Brett Veach was, quote, dealing with all that. When pressed about the trade, Reid said with a slight smile, "I know nothing." Nothing. As you said, they've been ravaged by injury. The Chiefs lost wide receiver Marquise Brown, one of their top free agent signings, to shoulder surgery prior to the start of the season. Rashee Rice sustained a season-ending knee injury last month. And veteran wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster is out after hurting his hamstring in last Sunday's
win. And they
win.
just picked him up a couple weeks ago.
Right, over the 49ers. Hopkins is the 3rd high-profile wide receiver to be traded in just over a week. Devontae went from the Raiders to the Jets, and the Bills acquired Amari Cooper and a 6th-round pick next year from the Browns for a 3rd-round pick along with the 7th. Is Hopkins still? He's got to be in his early 30s, right?
He's up there in age.
Is he still good?
He hasn't been this year.
Yeah.
But is that Is that on DeAndre Hopkins?
Right,
Is that on Will Levis as the quarterback? Is that on their play calling? I don't know, but he's had maybe one game where he's had a competent game. Otherwise, it's just a one-catch game here, a two-catch game here. But if he does have something left, he's going to be put into a much better situation. So we shall see.
Yeah, well, and I guess nobody for Tennessee's playing well, right? I mean, aren't they like 1-5?
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
They're a terrible team in a terrible city. So, that certainly can't hurt Kansas City, because that's what's crazy. I don't know how they do it unless, I'm not looking at their schedule. Maybe they've had patsies. Maybe they've been playing Oswalds this whole time, but they're 6-0. Mahomes doesn't have the numbers that we're used to seeing. Kelsey has had a subpar year by all accounts.
Mm-hmm.
They're starting running back gone. Wide receivers injured, yet they continue to win football games.
And their new starting running back was on the street as of 3 weeks ago, Kareem Hunt.
And they're still the only undefeated team left in pro football. And I don't know what that says, if it's Reed, Mahomes, the defense, or just finding ways to win, or weak schedule. I don't know, but I'm envious and jealous. That's a good organization, and I really did think, and again, we still got a long way to go. But I thought with Pacheco gone and some of the other injuries that because I've talked about how I'm starting to get tired of the whole Mahomes Kelsey thing as a fan. It's just like, okay, they've won 3 big games altogether.
3. Yeah, 2
in a row. They've won 3 altogether. And it's the old, well, how can you not admire what they do? Well, I do admire it, but I'm tired. I admire, but I tire. And so I don't mind seeing something else happen, but I can't think this can do anything but help the club. I mean, it's certainly better to throw to a guy that's been a Pro Bowler than to throw to what
during his prime. I mean, he was top 5 wide receiver in the National Football League.
Vikings against the Rams tomorrow. You'll hear that game on this radio station. Our coverage begins at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Be here for the kaboom at 7:15. Then the Lions play Tennessee on Sunday. They host them. Green Bay has... I
haven't even looked ahead.
I looked at it this morning. And now I'm annoyed that I
don't think there's any bye weeks this week.
No, there isn't. I can't. I just looked at it this morning. My memory is so bad. Give me NFL schedule. And who do the Bears have?
The Packers are at Jacksonville.
Yeah, and that's...
Lions host the Titans. That's an easy win.
Mm-hmm. And then who do the
Bears are at Washington, but Jaden Daniels in doubt.
Because as we know, right now the NFC North has the best. They're the strongest, at least certainly record-wise, division in pro football. A couple of 5-1 clubs: Vikings, Kitties, Bears, Packers at 5-2, Bears at 4-2. If service holds, of those games, who do you think faces the diciest situation? Would it be even if Daniels doesn't play? I can't expect. Of course, you can't say all the success for Washington.
They were still putting up points when Mariota came in last game, so it might just be one. I've seen that their offensive line is very, very good, so it might be a combination of their offensive line's good. Maybe their play calling is just so much better this year. It might not just be Jaden Daniels,
right? Do you think
as weird as it sounds, it might be a good situation for a quarterback to be in? Correct. But I guess we'll find out more if Mariota. I think Mariota is going to go.
I'm expecting the NFC North to go 4-0 this weekend, but if you were looking at those 4 games, Tennessee, who do you think has the diciest? Who's got the diciest proposition?
If Jaden Daniels is going, Bears have the diciest, but the Vikings, their opposition is dicier than Detroit's or Green Bay's this week.
Yeah. Well, because again, I don't always put a lot of stock in that. There's the desperation factor that some teams have, right? Many people will use that as part of their formula for trying to predict who's going to win a game. And I'm not saying it doesn't have something to do with it. If it's the old, your back's against the wall, it's gut check time, all the cliches. And the Rams are sort of in that situation at 2-4. I think if they have any aspirations, which you think they would, for postseason play. It's a big game. And, I don't know how much, you heard how highly KOC spoke about Sean McVay because he learned a lot under McVay. That's where his stop was before here. I don't know about how we have familiarity between the two, if that will have anything to do with the game at all. But yeah, I think you're right.
They should know each other's offense.
Well, that's for sure. So yeah, I would say, I saw someone, it might have been, I don't remember who it was now because I read several prognostications about the games. But somebody was also leaning on the fact of, after the Vikings lost the game in the manner in which they did, that just because they lost, they might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and really want to make a real statement, and get back on the winning track. So we'll find out. We'll know more tomorrow. Again, pregame 5, kickoff at 7:15. Rock Talk is next. Right now, Wild Today with Tennessee.
Yeah, this is Wild Today, brought to you by Jim Beam, the official bourbon of the Minnesota Wild. The Wild beat the Florida Panthers 5-1 last night, and Kaprizov and Zuccarello were going good.
Kaprizov into the corner, Zuccarello centering, back to Kaprizov, he's open, dancing behind the net, Bobrovsky way out in front, and they score! Zuccarello! What a goal! Kaprizov, a thing of beauty, Bobrovsky way down and out, and Zuccarello drills it home. It's 4-1 Minnesota.
Joe O'Donnell on the call last night right here on the Fan. Zuccarello had a goal and an assist. Kaprizov had 2 helpers. His 8 assists are 4th most right now in the National Hockey League, and Jake Middleton had 3 assists. The Wild improved to 4-0-2 on the season. They have yet to trail in regulation. Wild will remain in Florida as they take on the Tampa Bay Lightning tomorrow night. That was Wild Today, brought to you by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795.
It's a special homecoming edition of the Friday Football Feast this week. Join us at the Buffalo Wild Wings on the U of M campus this Friday following the Vikings versus Rams Thursday night showdown. Plenty of great food and drinks to be had, plus great prize up for grabs. Doors open at 8 a.m. Get the full details now at KFAN.com /calendar.
What's the name of the place again? What's the name of the place again?
Buffalo Wild Wings.
And what time would that be?
Doors open at 8 a.m.
Doors open at 8 a.m.
Friday.
Very good.
And where was it? Was it in Stadium Village, Dinkytown?
Dinkytown.
Okay, so can you imagine what a freak show that place is going to be on Friday morning?
Yeah, you have a website or a telephone number? I like to write these things down. Could you give that to me again? I got to get a piece of paper and a pencil.
BW3. Type it into your Google. It will take you exactly where you need to go.
Just go to KFAN.com /calendar.
I was just trying to do the Dark Star, but I guess I didn't do it very well. Anyway, we have a pair of Wild tickets to give away, and what we've been attempting to do is have people suggest a nickname for the Wild's number 1 line of Kaprizov, Zooks, and help me out, Tennessee. Rossi.
Oh, and I heard you earlier quizzing young Tenna on all these legendary lines from the 1920s and 40s.
And so, and we want, whoever comes up with the line we're going to give the tickets to. I think this might be the best so far. This text message just came in not too long ago that says, you could call it the meat sauce line since it's the most important people on the team.
I feel very seen right now. I
think that's pretty good because meat sauce is the most important person in the company, and these are the three most important people on the team. So maybe it should be, or maybe just the sauce line.
Did I or did I not make it to the quarterfinals?
I think you did.
I did, in fact.
I think you did indeed.
I was blown out, and rightfully so, because there was no context, and I was misconstrued, but I still believe.
Well, that's what happens here on the show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hadn't really noticed that before.
I'm going to workshop a new line for you here that I've been working on for Flop, Sweat, and Tears tonight. It's going to be like, boy, I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. Are we all going to be? Can I just don't start groaning yet?
All right, I'm sorry. I groaned too early. I apologize.
Because it has nothing to do with politics. It's just leading to a punchline. I
know.
And it goes, whatever side of the political aisle you lean on, are we going to be glad when the election's over? I mean, attack ads, people taking things out of context, putting words in people's mouths. It's really no different than when Mark Rosen walks in at 2 o'clock to the Common Man program. Hey-oh! And I got to workshop it a little bit more, but because that's what they do in politics, and that's what I do with Mark Rosen.
Well, it's what you do in comedy and what you do in any sort of entertainment. But I think you're on to something. I don't think you're on something. I think there's some meat on that bone, but you need to find it.
Flesh it out, workshop it.
Exactly.
Just send it to rewrite and let them punch it up a little bit. That, of course, is the voice of Brian Oak. It's time for Rock Talk. You have a podcast, I've been told.
I do, in fact. It's called The Brian Oak Show. Very clever, very creative. We thought about a bunch of like wacky names, and we're like, well, no one's going to know it's me, so we just went with The Brian Oak Show. Just recorded episode 433 yesterday about some cool events that are coming up that are very Halloween themed. And it's generally between 40 minutes and an hour, and you can listen to a little of it. You can listen to a lot of it. We also had a bunch of stuff from our archive vanish, and after weeks of trying to get to the bottom of it, the entire 433 episode archive is back. So again, you can get it through the iHeartRadio app.
If you're looking for a name for it, how about the Saucecast? Because he's the most important. Okay,
he's not on the cast.
That's okay. It's still important.
I'm not living off his legacy. He's doing that just fine. I don't know if you know this or not. I did radio a little longer than Sauce has done.
No question about that.
Yeah, so no, I'm going to ride my wave for a little while. Should that fail,
it was more just to be a joke about. I was playing off. It was called a callback to the last line. If I'm struggling this bad to get I'm trying to be funny. You're supposed to laugh. No money, no funny. And then hopefully people will come to the show tonight with material like this. Maybe that's why we're not selling as many tickets.
Where is the show today?
It's going to be at the Chart House in Lakeville. We're doing a Wednesday night show.
I did a bunch of Oak on the Waters at the Chart House. That's a lovely place. It's kind of a cool waterside old school supper club.
Yes.
It's a cool place. I like that.
And that's where we'll be working tonight.
Yeah.
Tickets are available at charthouselive.com.
Apparently a lot of tickets are available.
A lot of tickets are available. A lot of tickets. A lot of people don't think we're very funny, apparently. Matter of fact, it's gotten to this point with Sauce and I. They're doing a BOGO. If you buy tickets for Flop, Sweat, and Tears, you can get a ticket for any Mick Sterling Presents tribute show of your liking.
Oh, no, see, that's pretty cool because Sterling, Sterling is a known quantity, but he has been doing what he does at one of the highest local pro levels of anybody for the last, dear God, I don't even want to hazard a guess, 30 years? Longer?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, no. He can do a tribute show. He can do his own stuff. That's a pretty good deal. I mean, I would probably sit through Flop, Sweat, and Tears just so I could go see Mick Sterling.
Well, that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
And not only that, here's what else I'm told. Not only will you get, if you buy Flop, Sweat, and Tears tickets, where you get tribute show tickets, they'll also allow you to take the chair you're sitting on home tonight, too.
That's not true.
You get that as well. So you get
not true.
Well, people know that's comedy. See, that's a line. I've been workshopping that line. So I'm going to say that tonight. I'm going to say, and in addition to those tickets for the tribute show, you get to take the chair you're sitting on home with you tonight.
Now, see, that's pretty good.
That's what I thought.
I mean, it's okay.
Liam Payne.
Yeah.
With One Direction, a very tragic story. Is the assumption still suicide? Nothing has been completely...
Well, now, the assumption, a lot of people think so, but even if you're ganked to the teeth, which he was, the list of drugs inside his body...
Pink cocaine, which I'd never heard of before.
I'd never heard of either, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. But, I feel like 3 floors up isn't high enough. If you're like, I need to end this, you might just break your neck. You might just crack your hips. It's not. So again, but who?
But you're probably not thinking logically either.
Well, no,
point.
exactly. Yeah. So I don't think anyone will ever know the real answer. But no foul play is suspected. Right. It could have been an accident. It could have been intentional. But yeah, pink cocaine, which I had never heard of before in my life. Even with all the other stuff, Your Honor, if you dare to put alcohol with this stuff, MDMA, which is ecstasy, ketamine, which is horse tranquilizer.
I've done that.
And methamphetamine, which is exactly the opposite. Now, you remember back in the 70s, a lot of people were getting killed by speedballs, right?
Right.
A mixture of cocaine or methamphetamine with heroin. Your heart can't take it.
What a lovely combination.
No, not really. Your heart can't take it. Your brain can't take it. You can't have those kind of ups and those kinds of downs at the same time and expect the regular human autonomic system to be able to cope with it. And so pink cocaine, and I get it that people like to party. I get it that people are always pushing the envelope. You and I have both done a little envelope pushing in our time.
Very much so.
But pink cocaine, MDMA, ketamine, and methamphetamine at the same time, it sounds... Well, I mean, you're going to not feel like a normal human for a while, and he was probably looking to get away from the world. So no foul play suspected, but suicide, accident, nobody knows.
We talked about it with Little B and 10 to B last week because on Friday, because the story broke last week when he perished. And we were sort of kind of talking, because, I'm not familiar with any of these boy bands. I don't. I know the name One Dimension, but I wouldn't know them.
One Direction. You do not know the name One Direction.
One Dimension. Sorry, Fifth Dimension. I was thinking of the Fifth Dimension. I've heard of One Direction before, but I don't recognize that. How, you don't have to like them, but you have to appreciate, right?
No, well, here's what I will say. The scope and spectrum of the impact they had, I mean, and I'm going to hurt some feelings out there, and I'm glad that the smoke show from Glencoe isn't sitting right here, because she might give me a backhand if I said this, but One Direction, as a boy band goes, had a bigger global impact. There were bands as big in the UK. There were bands maybe a little bigger in the US. But as far as worldwide global impact, there's never been a One Direction before, and I don't know that we're going to see that at any sort of boy band. Massive. Hundreds of millions of records. Hundreds. Okay, that might be an exaggeration, but they did top charts in dozens of countries all over the world. And the level of fandom, they came along at a time like, if NSYNC or one of these other bands had been around when the internet was at its full-blown, piping hot steam engine-ness, it might have been the same for them. But if you would dare to say anything against One Direction or go online, the One Deers, the One Directioners, they were like a swarm of rabid winged ants. They were on you immediately. So the level of love they engendered. And so I can only imagine the impact this is having among, is it Gen Z? Is that who it is?
It could very well be Gen Z. I'm not sure which Gen
I mean, like,
is.
It's going to be like, because, they've been around, they were around for a decade, and, and then obviously they splintered, and different guys had different careers. I don't know what
Harry
Liam was
Styles
up to.
probably was the most successful
By
solo,
far,
right? Because I recognize that name. I did not know any of the other names.
I own all of Harry Styles' albums. I bought them on vinyl. He works with the right producers. He writes good songs. Go listen to Watermelon Sugar and get yourself in the mood for a Wednesday evening. We
talked extensively, or fairly extensively, either the last week or the week before, about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They inducted 6, 7, 8 rock and rollers or artists this past weekend in Cleveland. Did you watch any of the Hall of Fame ceremony? I saw some snippets on my handheld computer, which doubles as a communication device. You know what I find kind of sad is like Lou Gramm. He sang with Kelly Clarkson. Yeah. And I think the reason and I don't mind that they do the duets, because they all seem to hook up with certain artists and do songs. But the voice just isn't what it used to be. And it's almost like, God, I wish they would have put him in 30 years ago. When he could still hit that, he can't hit that.
Of course not.
And I miss that part. That's what and it's okay. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying they wait so long to put these people in. I mean, Frampton's coming out on a cane. Yep. He's got to sit on a stool to do his music. It's unfortunate, but apparently a grand time was had by one and all.
Almost everybody seemed to be delighted with the proceedings. Mary J. Blige got in, Cher got in, Dave Matthews Band, Foreigner, as you mentioned, Lou Gramm, Peter Frampton, Kool and the Gang, Ozzy Osbourne, and A Tribe Called Quest. Some in the performer category, people like Jimmy Buffett, MC5, Dionne Warwick, Norman Whitfield. They got the Musical Excellence Award, which there's a certain irony. As brilliant and loud and powerful and punk rock as their songs were, getting MC5 in under the banner of musical excellence is kind of hilarious to me.
So?
Again, it's not like they were bad musicians, but They weren't like going Frank Zappa complex. It wasn't Steely Dan. It was loud, nasty, snarly, amazing Detroit rock and roll that was as important as the Stooges. It was so they deserved to be in. A lot of people went in, but there were a few people who were apparently less than happy with the proceedings. This is not the first time this has happened, right? Do you remember when Steve Miller tried to get all the members of his band in, and then he's like, well, we need our wives in, and and they're like, you get 4 tickets, and that was the end of it. And he was bitter. He was very bitter.
Well, someone on Foreigner was the same way, right? They didn't show up. They said, well, if my wife can't be at the red carpet, I'm out.
Absolutely correct. And when Sammy Hagar was introducing Foreigner into the Rock Hall, he performed a little bit earlier in the evening, and he went on and on about how these guys should have been inducted, as you said, a long time ago. He's like, we've all asked ourselves, all us musicians out there, what's the criteria? How do you get into the Hall of Fame? One big hit song, right? Well, Foreigner had 9 mega hits in the top 100 in Billboard. Not 1, 9, okay? Boom, qualified. Then he went on. He said, number 2, you should have a gold record, a platinum record. Well, here comes Foreigner with 80 million records sold, 6 top 10 albums, including Foreigner 4, which spent 10 weeks at number 1. Jukebox Hero, anybody? And he's like, right? And then he would go on to perform Hot Blooded with Slash, Demi Lovato, Chad Smith, and some others, and some members of Foreigner's touring band. And so, I mean, largely, it was a big celebratory night. But I think this gets back to that whole thing of like, what is the criteria? We as Ultra fans want to know how come one of our favorite bands isn't in, but even they, as insiders, are like, how do you get? I mean,
what else
could Foreigner have done?
Well, it's very political. There's a couple of guys really making all the decisions. Is it Armin Turgejian, and there's a couple of others that kind of run the show there. And
I don't think he's alive anymore.
Well, he was one of the most important people. As a matter of fact, I think he helps. The story I once read, maybe I'm way off. Somebody came up with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame idea. He stole it from this kid, and he was the one that stole it. And that do you know how to say his name? Armin.
Are we talking about Amit Erdogan, the guy who founded Atlantic Records?
Yes.
He's dead, unfortunately.
Okay,
but it's certainly possible. He was one of the most influential figures in music from the 60s well into the 80s.
And if I'm besmirching his character, then I apologize, but I could have swore it was him that had a lot to do with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there were accusations that were just kind of, if he liked you, you could get in. If he didn't like you, well, then too bad. Even if you were qualified, you're not getting in.
And, I don't know the veracity of that particular argument. I've heard the same thing before, but not just Amit Erdogan. There are a bunch of people in exceptionally influential positions in the record industry. And now the record industry is contracting, like many of the old school industries. And so we'll see what kind of influence they continue to have. But no, there are dozens, if not hundreds. Hundreds of bands that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He served as chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum.
Exactly. And again, so ultimately, I'm certain that he had the final gavel on yes or no, because I'm sure all these other people on the council or whatever it was were bringing up ideas like, what about this person? What about that person? But it is kind of silly, given what megastars they were in the 80s, that it took Foreigner this long to get in.
I thought it was interesting, Dionne Warwick. She had kind of you and I have had this discussion before. Like, I just always felt like, and you can define rock and roll any way you want. I always thought it should be called the Music Hall of Fame, right?
Agreed.
But what she said, she kind of agrees, because she goes, I'm delighted to be in. She goes, but I never considered myself a rock and roller. I considered I don't know how she defined herself, but she did. She said she's fine being in, but she said I never really considered myself a rock and roll artist, but she was delighted to get in. And I think you have a lot of people under that cat. Like, for instance, I certainly wouldn't consider Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson rock and rollers, 2 of the greatest country acts that have ever graced the planet.
But also 2 of the most unbridled rock and roll spirits that have ever existed.
Sure.
And so again, if people want to get caught up on like, well, that's not Iron Maiden, man, that's not rock and roll, it's Dionne Warwick. She's a little confounded. Dolly Parton was confounded when she got in.
Correct.
And how did she respond? She turned around and recorded a rock record.
Album,
and it's good.
Maybe Dionne Warwick will do a rock album.
I doubt that very much. But Dionne Warwick, so again, you're right. Maybe they should change the title, or maybe people should not get so hung up on the details, because, To deny Dionne Warwick's place in American music history is silliness.
I will say this. I'll put it this way. You don't have to like her.
Oh, my God.
But you have to respect the impact she's made.
I always love that one.
Modern American music.
You know what I like to say is you don't have to go to Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Flop, Sweat, and Tears is called.
Whatever it's called. Flop, Sweat, and Tears.
But you have to appreciate.
But you have to appreciate the fact that someone was willing to book these guys, despite the fact they knew they were going to take a bath.
Well, that's not the only place. We're also going to be at the Mudroom. We're going to be at Rockwoods. We're going to be at Forgotten Star. We're going to be at.
What's the name of the website again?
We're going to also be at River Oaks Golf Course. We've got 6 shows before Christmas, and they're reaching out to us.
Are they?
Let's just lay it out there. It's not like we're banging on doors, hat in hand, going, "Hey, please, will you let us work your club?" They're calling and saying we would be excited and delighted to welcome you inside our club. They said I would never work the chart house. They said, "Oh, sure, you can go work at River City Extreme in Monticello, and you can work at the Cinema Grill in Hopkins. You can work at the Mermaid over in Mounds View.
You can go to the Ha Ha Hut in Zumbrota.
You can go ahead and work Bogarts at Apple Valley, but you'll never work the chart house in Lakeville." That's what they said. Well, look at me tonight. I'll be there.
Super quick question.
Yeah.
Who said that?
It's just an old comedy.
Why do you keep popping the balloon, man?
It's just an old comedy.
Quit copping the.
You know where I got that from? I actually got it from
Shecky Green.
Tennessee. Losing My Hair. Isaac Whitty. Whitty, he was on Conan O'Brien before he was on Letterman. He's a local guy now. He's living. I think he got out of the comedy business. He's living down in. I think he's in Florida. Anyways, he did the bit. I worked with him and he did that. But he goes. They said I'd never work here. And I go, where'd you get that? He goes, comics have been using that forever. And I said, okay, I'm going to use it then too. Because I just thought the crowd loves it. You just start saying, you doubted me. You said I'd never work here. And again, it's not like you're working, and I love all the aforementioned clubs I mentioned. But let's face it, it's not the Comedy Store. It's not Catch a Rising Star, right?
No, it's not.
They're just regular bars and restaurants and say, hey, let's do a little comedy just for some fun.
Dude, I used to go to Pepito's and watch comedy by people who were not good. But I was eating nachos and having a beer, and I felt all right. So I think one of the things against you is that people
It's a Wednesday night.
Well, it's Wednesday night, but also like when we did Oak on the Water down there, we got decent crowds, but not great crowds, because I think that there's a lot of people out here who are like, Lakeville? I don't have time to drive that far away.
Lakeville has been successful, I've been told, in talking to Sterling's people, is that people in Lakeville, and this is why Wild Bill Bauer was one of the first to do this, the late Wild Bill Bauer, take comedy out to the outlying towns, because like if you're in Waseca, do you really want to? You don't want to drive into Minneapolis. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly how far away. But anyway, right. You don't want to come in from St. Cloud, 90 minutes away. You don't come in. But if all of a sudden comedy's, it's in our town. Heck yeah, I'll go and see it. So that's why. So people in Lakeville, apparently, they kind of like that. They don't have to drive into Minneapolis. They like an early show, 7 o'clock. Get done by 8:30. Home at 9. Weeknight, you're in and out. And it's worked really well for music. Apparently not as well for comedy.
So he's a frontiersman, and he's out there selling Dr. McGillicuddy's cure-all lotion out on the fringes of suburban society. Not to speak ill of the dead. It's weird. I wish I could remember the quote, but somebody told me the next time I saw you to tell you something that the last time they saw Wild Bill Bauer told him something. I'm going to have to wait again. I wish I could remember, but I had completely forgotten until you brought his name up.
Put it this way. I was born in the wagon of a traveling show.
Here we go.
My mama used to dance for the money they'd throw. Papa would do whatever he could, preach a little gospel, sell a couple of bottles of Dr. Good.
Exactly.
And we're going to sell some Dr. Good tonight.
Well, I break a leg. I hope you have a fantastic evening.
How about you showing up? Now you're supposed to go, you're breaking up, or, I got paint to watch dry.
No, I don't like to paint. I don't do home projects, but I did do a ton of laundry today.
Okay.
I'm going to be folding socks till after midnight.
I get that.
What time is the show at?
The show's at 7 o'clock.
Oh, no, I got a boiling hot fat of asphalt being delivered right at that range, right at that time.
Isn't that funny?
I do love the program, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. Coming in for Rock Talk again. Brian Oak Podcast?
Yeah, the Brian Oak Podcast, 433 3 episodes deep. We talk about local music, entrepreneurs, all kinds of stuff about Minnesota. And you can find it on the free iHeartRadio app. #1 for podcasting, from what I understand.
As Paul Allen would say, got you. We'll see you next week on a Wednesday. We'll take a break, come back with more Common Man program here on The Fan.